by advertising.
Hello, I'm Brian Cox.
I'm Robin Ince.
Welcome to the 27th season of The Infinite Monkey Cage.
And we are dealing with some very, very explosive things, such as
bees.
We're going to explain how bees explode, why wasps don't explode, how delicious wasp honey is, before we then climb into a supervolcano, metaphorically.
And then we're going to discover how you might feed yourself inside the supervolcano by eating fungi.
Or ultra-processed food. We're also going to look at ancient DNA and
sharks.
Listen to The Infinite Monkey Cage wherever you get your podcasts.
This is the Global News Podcast from the BBC World Service. I'm Janat Jalil, and in the early hours of Sunday the 2nd of July, these are our main stories. There have been more clashes in France hours after the funeral of the teenager whose death at the hands of police sparked nationwide riots. The head of the CIA says unhappiness with Russia's leadership has given the United States a once-in-a-generation opportunity to recruit spies. Twitter's owner Elon Musk has announced temporary limits on the number of posts users can read each day. Also in this podcast,
the Gay Pride Festival in Seoul is first and foremost a celebration. All around me are people dressed in rainbow colours.
Tens of thousands of people in South Korea have taken part in the annual Pride Parade, one of the largest in Asia. We begin in France. As we record this podcast, tens of thousands of police have again been deployed in cities across France after 4 nights of rioting. On Saturday, the funeral was held of 17-year-old Nael, whose killing by a police officer on Tuesday sparked the violence which has seen hundreds of buildings set on fire and hundreds of businesses looted. The sale of fireworks and inflammable liquids has now been banned. Amid fears of a 5th night of violence, videos on social media appeared to show clashes in the southern port city of Marseille. So as regards the mood in France on a Saturday night in summer and the current stance of the police, the BBC's Hugh Schofield has more.
You know, at the moment, it's just firefighting in a kind of metaphorical sense. All they can do is be tough with these riots and wait till it dies down. It will die down, but we don't know when, and it may be that it does require some drastic psychological kind of kick, like a state of emergency, to bring about that moment. I mean, at some point, the rioters are going to tire, and there'll be a kind of return to the old normal. But it's not going to be tonight. You know, it's the weekend now. It's the night of the funeral. You know, the worst of it is that it's a summer. The long evenings, schools are breaking up. This evening already down in Marseille, we're hearing of things kicking off on the Canebière. That's the road that leads down to the old port. So, yeah, I mean, everyone presumes that tonight is going to be a bad night as well.
Hugh Schofield. So as we said, the French-Arab teenager Nael has been laid to rest. Hundreds of people turned out for his funeral in the Paris suburb of Nanterre, where he was shot dead. Some rode scooters alongside the hearse as it drove from a mosque to a nearby cemetery.
Justice for Nael! Justice for Nael!
Many shouted, "Justice for Nael." Our Paris correspondent Lucy Williamson reports on the funeral.
Beside the discreet barricades outside the cemetery in Nanterre, a small crowd waited for Nael's funeral cortege. There was more tension than talking. All filming, even on phones, was banned. No Snapchat, no Insta, mourners were told. The message to journalists was starker: get a camera out at your peril. Public interest in Nael grating against more private ties. One woman, who wasn't at the funeral, told us she knew Nael a little. She didn't want to be identified. She said the violence triggered by his death was unhelpful.
Burning everything, schools, town halls, it's useless. Everything they're doing, the parents will pay the price. But if there are riots, it's because the police are looking for it. When they check young people's IDs 10 times a day, it's irritating.
The prayers in Nanterre were for Nael at night. The demands of some here are for justice. The prayers of others are for peace.
Lucy Williamson in Paris. Police unions in France have warned that their members are close to exhaustion. In some areas, they say tear gas and other supplies used in crowd control are running low. All week, the BBC has been inviting representatives of the French police to speak to us, so far with no luck. But the main police union, the Alliance Police Nationale, did send us a statement on Saturday. Here's part of it.
That's enough now. Faced with these savage hordes, asking for calm is no longer enough. We must impose it. Our colleagues, like the majority of citizens, can no longer endure the diktats of these violent minorities. Today, the police are in combat mode because we're at war. Tomorrow, we resist, and the government will have to take heed.
My colleague Rebecca Kesby spoke to Professor Sébastien Roche, who's research director at the French National Centre for Scientific Research. He specialises in comparative policing research, particularly policing minority groups and the use of weapons. She asked him first for his take on how the police have handled the violence over the past few days.
The difficulty is that the police are at the origin of the largest crisis of the last 15 years because they have shot a young boy that was not a threat to the police officer who decided to take that shot. But on the same hand, since the riot have begun, we have seen a quite moderate approach from the government side and from the police side. There is a show of force, 40,000 officers on the street. We have armored vehicles on the street, police officers with warlike weapons, rifles, not only handguns, and also rubber bullet guns, etc. But they use them very, if I may say, sort of smoothly. I mean, nobody has been shot by the police.
Well, okay, you say moderate. They have arrested well over 1,000 people. And I just want to draw your attention to this rather combative press statement we've had from the Alliance Police Nationale. This is the primary police union today. They've said they're facing savage hordes. Asking for calm is no longer enough. We must impose it. They say today the police are in combat mode because we're at war. I mean, is that the right kind of tone to be setting to try and calm things down?
No, I mean, the President of the Republic, Prime Minister, Minister of Interior, they have one line of language. They try to be moderate, but the police unions in France, they are closer to the extreme right, the Rassemblement National. We are talking about rioting in the banlieue, and that's where a lot of people with foreign origin live. They consider them as pests, I'm quoting. Yeah?
Right.
So they have a very harsh language, and it could be seen as some sort of an incitement to civil war.
I mean, when you put that on top of the fact that this is the third fatal shooting at a traffic stop this year alone, there were 13 last year fatal shootings at traffic stops, which presumably are fairly routine affairs all over the world, in fact. But why are they becoming fatal so often? I mean, what's going wrong with policing?
No, the French police looks really bad. We have systemic discrimination against minority group. And now we have, since 2017, we have a 5 to 6-fold increase in the number of lethal shootings during traffic stops. So that's an incredibly bad situation. I think the French police is the champion of Europe when it comes to killings for traffic stops.
Professor Sébastien Roche from the French National Centre for Scientific Research. Well, President Macron has now postponed a state visit to Germany that was due to begin on Sunday to deal with this crisis, which comes after months of protests over his contested pension reforms. David Chazan, a reporter in Paris, told us more about the challenges the French president faces.
Trying to quell the rage on the streets appears to be gobbling up every bit of his attention. And he's relying on the police, but many of them are angry too. As they see it, he was too quick to condemn the officer accused of the shooting that triggered the chaos. I'm not sure they've all forgiven him for that yet, even though he's toughened what he's saying about the rioters. And now he's appealing to parents to keep teenagers at home and stop them joining the riots. But This is hardly a good look for a head of state, and it makes it easy for the far right and the far left, who are now the main opposition, to accuse him of weakness, of failing to come up with ideas. There's a sense that he's casting around for solutions, even that he's growing desperate. And President Macron is also hampered by his unpopularity after forcing through those hated pension reforms without a parliamentary vote.
David Shazam. Now to other news. The head of the US intelligence agency, the CIA, has said unhappiness in Russia over the invasion of Ukraine presents an opportunity to recruit more spies. William Burns told a gathering in Britain that disaffection was gnawing away at the Russian leadership. Here's our security correspondent, Gordon Carrera.
William Burns said the mutiny by Yevgeny Prigozhin's Wagner forces last Saturday was a vivid reminder of the corrosive effect of Putin's war on his own society and his own regime. He said that disaffection had created a once-in-a-generation opportunity for the CIA, referring to its role in recruiting human agents to provide intelligence. We're not letting it go to waste. We are very much open for business, he added. A recent video in Russian telling people how to covertly contact the agency had 2.5 million views, he said. Mr. Burns did not directly address recent reports in the Washington Post that he made a secret visit to the Ukrainian capital shortly before the mutiny. It was reported that discussions with Ukrainian officials included the possibility that progress in their counteroffensive might open the way for peace negotiations from a position of greater strength if substantial territory was taken from Russia.
Gordon Carrera. Antonio Guterres has arrived in Haiti on his first visit as UN Secretary-General in a bid to raise the alarm about the Caribbean nation, which has been racked by spiralling gang violence, even as it deals with political, economic and public health crises. Mr. Guterres urged the rest of the world not to forget the Western Hemisphere's poorest country. Leonardo Rocha reports.
The crisis has worsened since the assassination of President Jovenel Moïse 2 years ago. Last September, criminal gangs blockaded the fuel terminal for 6 weeks, bringing the economy to the verge of collapse. A month later, the UN proposed sending a rapid action force to help police restore order. But Mr. Guterres has failed so far to find support for his plan. The US, Canada and other major aid donors say the crisis will only be solved once Haiti's Prime Minister, Ariel Henry, sets a date for presidential and congressional elections.
Leonardo Rocha. To the South Korean capital now, where tens of thousands of people took part on Saturday in the annual Pride Parade, one of the largest in Asia. This comes as the LGBTQ community is continuing to fight for the right to same-sex marriage. It's illegal currently in South Korea, but Parliament is considering a bill to allow it. Michael Bristow sent this report from Seoul.
The Gay Pride Festival in Seoul is first and foremost a celebration. All around me are people dressed in rainbow colours. Some of them are wearing exotic costumes. There's even a few not wearing very much at all. All of them, though, welcome the growing diversity here in South Korean society.
It's important to showing us that we are existing here and we are being the citizens together. So I came out to here.
And are you having a good time?
Yeah, so happy!
We are not an invisible person and hope some find any lover.
So you want to come here because you want to show that you're not invisible in South Korean society, and you might want to find a lover too.
Yeah.
The people here also want change, specifically more legal protection for sexual minorities, and ultimately they want the legalization of same-sex marriages, but not everyone agrees. Just a few hundred metres away from the Gay Pride Festival, there's another rally, a rival one. This one's been organised by a coalition of churches in South Korea. They oppose the legalisation of same-sex marriages, and they're on the streets to make their voices heard.
We're here as Christians because the Korean government is trying to pass laws, allow homosexuals and gay marriages. And as Christians, we believe that homosexuality is a sin. And so we're here because they're doing a march, and so we're peacefully coming against that. As they are expressing their beliefs, we're also expressing our belief.
So which side's going to win in this battle over morals in South Korea? Some campaigners believe that it's only a matter of time before attitudes and then the law will change.
My name is Minil Ryu. I'm an attorney here in South Korea, and I'm working on many LGBT rights issues. Over the past 10 years, we already saw many progress from Korean society in terms of perception around LGBTQ people. Majority of Koreans, it's just they don't know anybody from LGBTQ population and they don't know how to think about the issue yet.
But she says more and more gay people are now coming out to friends, family and colleagues.
Before they were like, oh, I'm from conservative household, I don't know anybody. But now I know one colleague from my office. They actually came out to me because he feels confident that I will be much better colleague. You see a lot of this type of journey story from people who haven't decided on LGBT rights.
So here in the South Korean capital, we've had two very different rallies, two sets of people with opposing views of the world. All of them believe what they think passionately. It's not going to be easy to find common ground.
Michael Bristow with that report from Seoul. Meanwhile, in London, police arrested 7 members of the Just Stop Oil protest group after they disrupted the annual Pride parade here. The activists sat down in the road and blocked the path of a Coca-Cola float before being removed by officers. Just Stop Oil had earlier urged organisers to stop taking sponsorship money from what it called high-polluting industries. A spokesperson for Pride in London, Will Diaz-Morris, had this message for the activists.
Pride is a protest and Pride is a celebration, and we're protesting for LGBT plus rights and for our trans siblings who must never march alone. So for us, anyone who tries to disrupt that parade is really letting down those people that use this space once a year to come together and celebrate and protest for those rights. There are so many other opportunities during the year to share your messages. Please don't try and rain on this parade.
Will Diaz-Morris. Still to come.
3, 2, 1.
Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from pad 40 and throttled down to prepare for Max Q.
A European Space Telescope has successfully blasted into orbit on a mission to understand mysterious phenomena known as dark matter and dark energy.
Hello, I'm Brian Cox.
I'm Robin Ince.
Welcome to the 27th season of The Infinite Monkey Cage.
And we are dealing with some very, very explosive things, such as bees. We're going to explain how bees explode, why wasps don't explode, how delicious wasp honey is, before we then climb into a supervolcano, metaphorically.
And then we're going to discover how you